April 1942. Malvern, England. Telecommunications Research Establishment. 1400 hours. Joan Curran, 28, research physicist, stared at a radar screen. She watched as aluminum strips fell from a weather balloon. On the screen, each strip appeared as an aircraft. Hundreds of phantom aircraft where only strips existed. British radar network could see everything. Every German bomber, every fighter. Britain's greatest defensive advantage. But German radar could see British bombers too. Luftwaffe controllers guided night fighters to RAF formations with deadly precision. Joan looked at those aluminum strips creating false echoes. What if we dropped these from our bombers? Everyone else saw strips of metal, scrap material, trash. But Joan saw a way to blind every radar in Germany. Make their entire defensive network useless. For pennies per mission. What happened 19 months later would prove that sometimes the simplest technology defeats the most sophisticated systems, and sometimes the most powerful weapon is something you throw away. By 1943, radar had become the war's invisible battlefield. Both sides depended on it absolutely. Britain's chain-home radar network detected incoming Luftwaffe raids, gave fighter command time to scramble interceptors, saved Britain during the Blitz. Germany's Würzburg and Freya radars created defensive network across occupied Europe, detected RAF bomber streams, guided night fighters to intercept, directed flak batteries with precision. Technology advantage. Even. Both sides had effective radar. But radar had a vulnerability. Radio waves reflect off metal. Radar works by sending out waves, measuring reflections, calculating distance and speed. Large metal object, aircraft, create strong reflection. Small metal objects create reflections too. Many small objects create many reflections. Problem. Radar can't distinguish between large object and cloud of small objects. Joan Curran understood this. Her background, studied physics at Cambridge. Newnham College, one of few women in physics program. Graduated 1935, 1940. Joined Telecommunications Research Establishment. TRE was Britain's secret radar laboratory. Developed new radar systems. Studied enemy radar. Worked on countermeasures. Joan's specialty. Radio wave propagation. How electromagnetic waves behave in atmosphere. Early 1942, she was studying false echoes. Unwanted radar returns. Usually from weather phenomena. Rain, snow, atmospheric ducting. During one experiment, wind blew aluminum foil from a laboratory window. Weather radar picked it up. Showed a strong return, Joan realized. That's not a problem. That's a solution. Aluminum strips cut to specific length, half the wavelength of enemy radar frequency, would create perfect reflections. Indistinguishable from aircraft, drop thousands of strips from bombers. Create thousands of false targets. She called it window. Codename. Descriptive. You throw it out the window. Curran wrote proposal. Sent to Dr. Robert Cockburn, TRE's head of countermeasures. Cockburn saw potential immediately. Brought it to Air Ministry. Air Ministry reaction. Fear. May 1942 meeting. Air Vice Marshal Robert Sondby. If this works against German radar, it works against ours too. What happens when Luftwaffe copies it? Uses it against Britain? That argument stopped everything. Britain's fighter defense depended on radar. If Germany got window technology and used it against chain home, British fighters would be blind. Military logic said, don't use it. Can't risk Germans learning about it. Churchill's Science Advisory Committee agreed. Professor Frederick Lindemann, Churchill's scientific advisor. Window is weapon we dare not use. Too dangerous if enemy discovers. Window was classified beyond top secret. Filed away. Forbidden technology. Joan Curran returned to other projects. But she knew. The technology worked. Eventually someone would use it. Better if Britain used it first. 1 year passed. Strategic situation changed. RAF Bomber Command was suffering catastrophic losses. Raids on German cities faced intense flak and night fighters, both guided by radar. March 1943. Nuremberg raid. Lost 96 bombers out of 795. 12% loss rate. Berlin raids. Hamburg raids. Cologne raids. Losses averaging 7 to 9% per mission. Bomber Command calculated. At this rate, every crew would be shot down before completing standard 30-mission tour. Air Marshal Arthur Harris, Bomber Command Chief. We're losing the radar war. German defenses are too accurate. Need countermeasure, now. Scientists reminded him, window exists. Developed a year ago. Banned because of enemy retaliation fears. Harris pushed Air Ministry. Situation had changed. Luftwaffe barely raided Britain anymore. Focused on Eastern Front. Risk of German retaliation decreased. May 1943. Chiefs of Staff Committee reconsidered. New analysis showed, even if Germany used window against Britain, Britain's fighter force had grown. Radar wasn't only defensive method now. Visual observation, radio direction finding, multiple backup systems existed, but Germany's defense depended almost entirely on radar. Blinding German radar would cripple their entire defensive network. July 15, 1943. Window approved for use. Production began immediately. Design specifications, aluminum strips, 27 centimeters long, exactly half the wavelength of German Würzburg radar, 2 centimeters wide, thickness, 20 microns, lighter than paper, packed in bundles, 2,000 strips per bundle, 1 kilogram total weight. Each bomber would carry approximately 2,500 bundles. Dropped through flare chute, 1 bundle per minute, target, Hamburg. Germany's second-largest city, major port, submarine construction, one of the most heavily defended targets, Operation Gomorrah, codename chosen deliberately, biblical city destroyed by fire from heaven. July 24, 1943. Aero 100 hours, 791. RAF bombers took off. Lancasters, Halifaxes, Stirlings, Wellingtons, each loaded with high explosive and incendiary bombs, and 2,500 bundles of aluminum strips. As bomber stream crossed into German airspace, crews began pushing bundles through flare chutes. Bundles broke apart. Strips dispersed, caught the wind, fluttered down slowly. On German radar screens, Chaos, Würzburg operators at Stade Luftwaffe base reported, scope completely jammed. Cannot distinguish individual targets, showing hundreds of aircraft. Frail long-range radar. Tracking impossible. Too many returns. Cannot guide fighters. German fighter controllers tried calling night fighters to intercept. Controllers. We show targets everywhere. Cannot provide vectors. You're on your own. German Luftwaffe pilot Oberleutnant Hans Joachim Jabs, flying Messerschmitt Bf 110 night fighter. My radar was useless. Showed nothing but noise. I flew blind hoping to spot bombers visually. Never found them. Hamburg's flak batteries depended on radar for altitude and range information. Predictors calculated where to aim. Without radar, flak crews fired barrage patterns. Guesswork. Ineffective. That night, RAF lost 12 bombers out of 791. 1.5% loss rate. Normal loss rate. 7 to 9%. Expected losses for Hamburg, 55 to 70 bombers. Actual, 12 lost. 43 additional crews survived because of aluminum strips. Operation Gomorrah continued. July 25th, 27th, 29th, August 2nd. 5 major raids. Each using window. German radar remained blind. Total Hamburg raids. 3,195 sorties, 87 bombers lost, 2.8% loss rate. Before window, expected casualties at 7% would have been 217 bombers lost, 130 crews saved. German response. Panic. Luftwaffe. Generaloberst Josef Kammhuber, commander of Night Fighter Force, July 26th, report to Göring. Defensive radar completely jammed. Cannot guide fighters. Cannot direct flak. Request immediate countermeasure. Göring's response. Develop counter to this immediately. Problem. No counter existed. Physical chaff couldn't be filtered. Radar showed what was there. Aluminum strips were there. German scientists tried everything. Different radar frequencies. Didn't work. Strips were cut for multiple wavelengths. Narrower radar beams. Didn't help. Still showed false returns. Training operators to distinguish patterns. Impossible. Clouds of chaff looked identical to bomber formations. Germany's defensive network, built at enormous cost, became marginally effective overnight. Luftwaffe eventually adapted. Relied more on visual observation. Ground observation corps, searchlight cooperation, radio triangulation, but accuracy never recovered. German night fighters' kill rate dropped from 9% to 4% for remainder of war. As predicted, Germany developed their own chaff, called it Duppel, named after forest where they tested it. But by the time Germany used Duppel, British defenses had already adapted. Multiple radar frequencies, backup systems, visual tracking networks. Britain lost what Germany lost. Radar certainty. But Britain prepared for it. Germany didn't. Joan Curran received no public recognition during the war. Classified project. Her name appeared in no newspapers. After war, she continued research, worked on microwave technology, became expert in radio wave propagation. British government declassified window project. Joan's role became public. Scientific journals praised her. Window was one of war's most effective countermeasures. Saved hundreds of British lives. Crippled German defense network. Joan, in 1980 interview, I just thought about the problem logically. Radar shows metal objects. Show it more metal than it can handle. She died 1999, age 85. Obituaries focused on her scientific achievements. Window mentioned prominently. Robert Cockburn, her colleague at TRE. Joan had gift for seeing simple solutions to complex problems. Window was typical. Everyone overthought radar jamming. Joan thought, just confuse it. Military principle emerged from Window. Sometimes defeating sophisticated technology doesn't require sophisticated counter-technology. Sometimes it requires understanding the technology's fundamental limitation. Radar's limitation cannot distinguish false returns from real returns if physical properties match. Solution: create false returns. Lots of them. Make them physically identical. Cost: pennies worth of aluminum. Less than 1 pound per bomber. Effect: billions of marks of German radar infrastructure rendered partially useless. Today, chaff remains standard military countermeasure. Modern chaff uses same principle Joan Curran discovered. Metal strips create false radar returns. Fighter jets carry chaff dispensers. Ships carry chaff rockets. Ground forces use chaff grenades. Technology evolved, but principle remained. Confuse enemy sensors with false targets. There's a memorial at Malvern where TRE was located. Lists major radar developments from World War II. 1 entry. Window countermeasure. Developed 1942. First used July 1943. Saved an estimated 300-500 bomber crew lives. Small plaque below. Joan Curran, physicist, saw that simplest answer was right answer. Students study Operation Gomorrah in military academies. Question always asked, how did simple aluminum strips defeat advanced radar? Instructors explain, advanced systems have advanced vulnerabilities. Sometimes simple technology exploits those vulnerabilities better than complex technology. The lesson isn't about radar or aluminum strips. It's about understanding fundamentals. German radar network was sophisticated, expensive, powerful, but relied on single principle. Metal reflects radio waves. Joan Curran understood that principle, exploited it. With technology simpler than the radar it defeated. Next time you face sophisticated problem, remember, solution might not require sophisticated technology, might require understanding what makes that sophistication work, then breaking it at the fundamental level. Joan Curran didn't build better radar. She built something that made radar irrelevant, and she did it with aluminum strips you could hold in your hand.